Welcome back, guys. Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me from where you're watching? Thanks. You know how some houses just feel weird the minute you walk in? Like they've been waiting for you? That's exactly what it was like when my cousin Maddie and I moved into that old place in Willow Creek. It was the summer of 1998. I was 9 years old, and Maddie was 6. Our parents had passed away in a car accident earlier that year, and our Uncle Ray, took us in. He lived alone in this really old, creaky house on a quiet street with crooked sidewalks and trees that looked like they were always whispering to each other. The house had chipped paint, vines crawling up the bricks, and windows that looked like eyes. I remember the first time I saw it. I thought, this house doesn't want us here. Uncle Ray wasn't the warmest guy, but he meant well. He gave us the upstairs bedrooms and told us to stay out of the basement and the attic. Too much junk, he said. At first, everything was kind of okay. The house was huge to us. We ran around exploring every room, pretending we were on treasure hunts or secret missions. That first week, Maddie told me she made 2 new friends. I figured she meant at the park, but she shook her head and whispered, "No, they live here." She named them Biddle and Marrow. Yeah, Biddle and Marrow. Not names you hear on the playground, right? I laughed it off, thinking she was just being her usual weird self. But then I noticed something strange. Maddie would disappear for hours and come back talking about games she played in the crawlspace or behind the old furnace. She'd giggle and say things like, Marrow says you snore like a walrus, Nuss, or Biddle wants me to show you the red door. I asked her what red door, and she just smiled in this creepy, quiet way. A few weeks passed, and things got weirder. I started having this dream. Always the same one. I'd wake up in my bed, but I couldn't move. My eyes would be open and I could see my room, my posters, my desk, everything. But something would be sitting on my chest. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there, breathing, watching. Every time. I'd wake up gasping like I'd been underwater. Then the house itself began to act strange. It started with the TV in the living room. It would flicker on in the middle of the night, static buzzing like whispers. The microwave would beep even when no one was near it. One time, the faucet in the upstairs bathroom turned on full blast while we were downstairs eating cereal. Uncle Ray thought it was old pipes or faulty wiring, but I knew better. I'd walk into a room and the lights would blink. The air would feel heavy like the walls were holding their breath. Sometimes I'd smell something weird, like burnt toast and old flowers. One night I was brushing my teeth when I heard soft tapping behind me. I turned around, nothing, I kept brushing. Tap, tap, tap. This time it came from inside the mirror. I leaned closer. My reflection. It was smiling, but I wasn't, I screamed. Uncle Ray came rushing in, but of course the mirror was normal by then. He said I was watching too many scary movies, but I hadn't seen a single one. Meanwhile, Maddie was getting worse. She talked to Biddle and Marrow more than she talked to me. Sometimes I'd hear her whispering at night, giggling, then suddenly crying. I'd go to her room and find her sitting up in bed, eyes wide open like she wasn't even really there. She started drawing things too. Pages and pages of creepy stick figures with long arms and sharp teeth. She drew our house over and over, but in her versions it had too many windows and shadows with eyes. One drawing had a figure standing under her bed. She said it was Marrow. I tried telling Uncle Ray, but he said Maddie just had an active imagination. He didn't want to hear it. One afternoon, I followed Maddie when she said she was going to play with her friends. She crept down the hallway and stopped in front of a panel in the wall behind the linen closet. I'd never seen it before. She reached up, pushed in the panel, and it clicked open. There was a staircase, a tiny, dark staircase that led down into the wall. Maddie, don't, I said, but she looked at me and said, they don't like it when you follow. Then she went inside and pulled the panel shut. I screamed and banged on the wall until Uncle Ray came. We couldn't find the panel again. It was like it vanished. Maddie was back in her room later, sitting on her bed like nothing happened. When I asked her where she went, she just said, Biddle showed me the hole where the eyes live. I didn't sleep that night. From then on, things really went downhill. My room turned freezing cold even in summer. My shoes would move in the night. Once I found my pillow in the hallway. Another time, every single drawer in my room was open when I woke up. Not pulled out, just hanging open like someone was checking what was inside. One night my bedroom door slammed shut and wouldn't open. I yanked and twisted the knob while something scratched at the other side. Long, slow scratches. Then the whispering started. It came from the vents, from under the bed, from the closet. I couldn't make out words, just this soft, slithery shh, like someone breathing into my ear. I stopped sleeping. Then came the worst night. There was a thunderstorm, loud, wild, shaking the windows. Around 1 a.m. I heard this loud crash like a bookshelf tipping over. I ran out of my room thinking something had fallen, but everything was fine. Then the attic door at the end of the hallway creaked open by itself. That door was always locked. Uncle Ray said there was nothing up there but old junk, but now it was open and I swear I saw something up there. Just a shape, thin, too tall, watching. I backed away slowly. Then the smoke alarm started blaring from the kitchen even though there was no smoke, no fire, no reason. That night I begged Uncle Ray to let us leave. He said no, said we were just spooked from the storm. I looked at Maddie. She didn't even look scared. She was smiling, not her normal smile. The kind of smile that doesn't belong on a kid. A few weeks later I left for a boarding school. Uncle Ray said it would be good for me. Maddie stayed behind. Years passed. When I was in college, I came back to Willow Creek for a visit. Uncle Ray still lived in that same house. Maddie had grown into a quiet, pale teenager. She barely spoke. Still drew those creepy pictures. One night during my visit, I asked her, "Do you still talk to Biddle and Marrow?" She looked up from her sketchbook and said, "They don't talk to me anymore. They live in the walls now." Then she smiled again. That night I heard tapping behind the mirror, just like before. Okay, so, listen. I don't really talk about this stuff a lot, but something happened to me when I was younger that I just can't shake. I still think about it sometimes late at night when everything's quiet. It's one of those stories that sticks with you, even if you try to move on, and maybe it's nothing. Maybe it was just a dream. But if it was the most real, terrifying dream of my entire life. I was around 14 when it happened. This was back in 2006 in this quiet little town called Maple Hollow, in northern Wisconsin. Nothing ever really happened there, just woods, lakes, old houses, and the occasional school dance that everybody pretended not to care about. I lived with my aunt and uncle at the time, Amy and Rob. My parents had to move out of state for work and couldn't take me right away, so I stayed with them for about a year. Their house was old, like 1940s creaky wood floors and weird basement smells, kind of old. It wasn't falling apart or anything, just had that feeling, you know? Like the walls had seen stuff. Anyway, I'd always had this weird sense that something followed me ever since I was little. Not like a ghost or anything super obvious, just a feeling, like something was watching from a distance. Not all the time, not even every week. But when it came, I knew. That pressure on the back of your neck when you're walking through the hallway alone. That tightness in your chest like you forgot something important, but can't figure out what. My uncle used to say I had an overactive imagination, especially since I was always sneaking out of bed to watch horror movies after midnight. I'd curl up on the old plaid couch in the basement, TV volume way down, blanket pulled up over my head. I loved the thrill. The monsters, the haunted houses, the creepy music. I thought I was tough, but none of those movies ever prepared me for what happened that summer. It started with something small, something I might have forgotten if not for what came next. It was late July, middle of a heat wave, but that night the air was surprisingly cool. The breeze coming through my window actually felt nice. I'd spent most of the afternoon lying in bed watching reruns of Alex and the Atom, this old cartoon that barely made sense but was hilarious. I must have drifted off around 5 p.m. with the TV still playing in the background. Now, here's the weird part. I didn't wake up until morning. That might not sound strange to most people, but I'm a light sleeper. Always have been. A dog barking outside or someone walking past my door usually wakes me up in seconds. But this time, I was out, like, completely gone. Not even a dream that I can remember. When I opened my eyes, the sunlight was pouring in through the window and everything looked normal, until I noticed my bedsheet. It was on the floor. Not bunched up or twisted, not kicked off like I'd tossed and turned. No, it was perfectly flat, laid out like someone had carefully removed it from my body and placed it gently on the hardwood floor. There wasn't a wrinkle in it. I swear it looked like it had been ironed and positioned by hand. And the weirdest part? It wasn't at the foot of the bed. It was up by the headboard on the opposite side of where it should have fallen. Like someone had pulled it off me, walked around the bed and laid it down behind my pillow. I sat up just staring at it for a long time. My heart started racing, but I didn't move. It felt wrong, like something had been in the room with me, like I'd just missed it. I went downstairs and asked Aunt Amy and Uncle Rob if they'd come into my room at any point. They both looked at me like I was nuts. They'd gone to bed early, didn't hear a thing, didn't go upstairs once. I wanted to brush it off. I really did. Maybe I kicked the sheet off and sleepwalked or something, but the way it was placed, I couldn't explain it. A couple of days passed and nothing else happened. I tried to let it go, but then came the night I'll never forget. It was a Thursday night, late August. School was just around the corner and I'd spent the day reorganizing my backpack and pretending I wasn't dreading ninth grade. That night, the house was extra quiet. I could hear Uncle Rob snoring through the thin walls, and the old pipes in the bathroom making those little ticking sounds they always made when the temperature changed. It felt like any normal night. I went to bed around 11. I remember lying there watching the ceiling fan spin, listening to the breeze outside. Then, somewhere between being awake and asleep, everything changed. I opened my eyes. Not slowly. Not like I was waking up from a nap. Just bam. Eyes wide open. I was lying completely still, but my heart was pounding like I'd been running. At first, I didn't see anything strange. The room looked exactly the same. But then I glanced at the mirror. There was this old rectangular mirror on the wall near my bedroom door. Nothing fancy, just one of those basic ones with a thin frame. But from where I was lying, I could see most of the room reflected in it, and that's where I saw it. Shadow. Huge, tall, moving slowly across the floor between my bed and the wall. I froze. It wasn't a shadow from something in the room. It didn't match the light. Didn't belong to any shape I recognized. It moved like it had weight, like it was made of smoke but with bones inside. It glided like it was underwater, its edges wavering like heat off pavement. I could make out a head, shoulders, arms that almost brushed the floor. It looked human, but it wasn't. It was too tall, too heavy. And it wasn't walking, it was floating just a few inches off the ground. I was lying there completely still, watching it move closer to the mirror. And then, it stopped. I swear on everything, it turned toward me. I didn't see eyes, but I felt them lock onto mine like hooks digging into my chest. My body went numb and I couldn't even breathe. Then it moved. So fast I didn't even see it happen. 1 second it was across the room. The next, it was inside the mirror, gone like it had melted into the glass. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump up and turn on every light in the house, but I couldn't move. My chest felt like it was being held down by 100-pound weight. My arms wouldn't lift. My eyelids started closing again, even though I was wide awake and terrified. It was like something was forcing me to go back to sleep. No matter how hard I fought it, my body gave out. I slipped back into unconsciousness like I was being dragged. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was flooding the room again. Birds were chirping. Everything looked normal. But it wasn't, because I remembered every second of what I'd seen, and it didn't feel like a dream. I've had nightmares before. You wake up with a jolt, maybe sweating, maybe scared, but this was different. This stayed with me. The heaviness, the chill, the feeling of something watching me, it didn't fade. I never told Aunt Amy or Uncle Rob. What would I say? Hey, there's something living in the mirror in your guest room. They'd laugh me out of the house. But after that night, I started sleeping with a towel over the mirror. Every night. No exceptions, and sometimes, even now I swear I hear something tapping. On the glass from the other side. Just 3 taps. Soft, slow. Like, it's waiting for me to take the towel. Damn, but I won't. I never will. And if you've got a mirror in your room right now, maybe you should cover it too, just in case. Okay, so let me tell you what happened to me about 3 weeks ago. I haven't been the same since. It's one of those things where no matter how much you try to forget it, your brain keeps dragging it back up like, hey, remember this nightmare fuel? Yeah, that. So here's the setup. I live in this little town called Crescent Pines out in Michigan. It's quiet, kind of boring, lots of trees. I'm 24, I work from home doing IT stuff. And most of the time I don't even leave the house unless I really need groceries or I'm going on my nightly walk. I've been doing this same walk for over a year now. Every single night around 8:45, rain or shine. It's just part of my routine. Helps me clear my head. There's this trail that starts right behind my apartment building. It's a paved path that curves through a wooded area and leads to a tiny wooden bridge over a creek. Real peaceful. You barely ever run into people back there. Most folks around here don't even know it exists. That's probably why I like it so much, and it feels like my own little world. Anyway, it was a Tuesday night, August 19th, 2025. I remember the date because it's the last time I felt truly safe back there. I had my headphones in, same as always, listening to this true crime podcast, not paying attention, just walking the path I've walked 100 times before. I was zoning out when I saw them, 2 people on horses. Now that might not sound super crazy to you, but trust me, it was weird. I'd never seen horses back there before, ever. I stopped walking for a second because I didn't want to spook them or anything. The path's kinda narrow and the trees are thick on both sides. As they passed me, I nodded politely. They nodded back. No words, no smiles, just a slow, serious kind of look. Like they were trying to tell me something without speaking. It wasn't mean or creepy, just, I don't know, off. Their eyes lingered on me too long, like they were waiting to see what I'd do next. After they disappeared around a bend, I shook it off. Probably just some folks from that old riding farm down on Hillside Lane. I mean, it's not impossible they'd take the trail, but something about the way they looked at me just bugged me. 5 minutes later, I heard a bike behind me. I glanced back and saw this kid, maybe 11 or 12, riding one of those big, chunky mountain bikes. He zipped past without saying anything, which is normal, I guess, but when he got about 30 yards ahead, he slammed on his brakes. There was a man standing in the middle of the path. I couldn't hear what they were saying because of my podcast, but I could tell they were talking, for like 10 seconds tops. Then the kid suddenly turned his bike around and booked it in the opposite direction, right past me, fast. He didn't even look at me, just pedaled like the devil was chasing him. I took out my headphones. That's when I started to feel it. That tingly, cold feeling on the back of your neck. The one you get when your gut knows something isn't right. As I walked closer, I got a better look at the guy standing there. And honestly, it stopped me in my tracks. This man, he looked like a clown, but not like a birthday party clown. He looked like someone who tried to dress like a clown without actually knowing what clowns are supposed to look like. He had on this ratty rainbow wig, all lopsided and dirty. His face wasn't painted, but he wore these enormous plastic glasses with big round lenses that magnified his eyes, which were wide open and didn't blink once. His clothes were a mess, a long, oversized coat that looked like it had been soaked and left to dry in a gutter, and underneath it, pajama pants covered in weird stains and rips. But the worst part, the part I still hear in my head sometimes, was his shoes, wooden clogs. Real, old school, heavy wooden clogs, and every step he took made this horrible clack sound that echoed through the trees, like someone hitting a baseball bat against a hollow floor. You could hear it long before you saw him and long after he passed. I froze. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there slightly turned like he was looking at something down the path. His arms hung at his sides, no phone, no backpack, no dog, no reason to be there. I thought, okay, maybe it's a prank. Maybe I'm on one of those YouTube scare channels. I even looked around, half expecting someone to jump out with a camera, but it was dead silent. The guy didn't say a word. He didn't even glance at me as I walked by. I kept my head down, acted like I didn't see anything strange, like this was just another part of my routine. My heart was hammering. I could hear it in my ears. I kept walking, not too fast, but faster than usual. And that's when I heard the clack, clack, clack of his shoes behind me. Not running, just walking. Same pace, same rhythm. It should have made me feel better and like at least he wasn't following me. But something about that sound made my skin crawl. It echoed off the trees like someone knocking on the inside of my skull. Then about a minute later, the clacking stopped. No fading. No slowing down. Just silence. I didn't want to look back. I told myself maybe he turned onto a side trail or stopped to tie his shoe. Then I remembered. Wooden clogs don't have laces. I walked another 10 steps and couldn't take it anymore. I spun around. He was gone, not walking. Not hiding. Just vanished. There's nowhere to go back there. No houses, no parked cars. Just trees. But even those aren't that dense. If he'd stepped into the woods, I would have seen movement. Heard a branch snap. Something. I stood there for what felt like 5 full minutes just staring down that empty trail. I finally made myself keep walking. Fast. Almost running. I didn't look back again. When I got home, I locked every window, every door. Turned on all the lights. Slept with a flashlight and a baseball bat next to my bed. Didn't tell anyone. I figured no one would believe me anyway. The next night, I walked the same trail. I had to. I couldn't let fear win. Nothing happened. Same thing the night after that. And the next? I've done that walk every night since, and I've never seen the horse riders again. Never saw the kid. Never saw that man in the clogs. But every time I reach that part of the path, right before the wooden bridge, I feel it. That chill, like someone's watching from the trees, and sometimes, when the wind dies down and it's really quiet, I swear I still hear those clogs clack, clack, clack. What do you think I saw? Because I still don't have an answer.